open clinic hours. Oh, you're good, LV.
Hey,
All right. It's 12 o'clock. I'll admit. Yeah, we're
yep.
ready.
Yeah, pressure tech.
Okay, here we go. Hi, everyone. I recognize a lot of people coming on to the
Hello.
Zoom. Hi. Was that Phyllis or
It was
Janice? Hi,
Janice.
Janice. How are you?
Doing well, thank you. How are you?
I'm good. Happy Sunday.
Thank you. Same to you.
I just got your text. I'll respond after this.
No problem.
The numbers look good, by the way.
Okay.
All right, so we're going to get started here. And then, LV, you'll just manage the people coming into the waiting room. Grace is here.
Yes.
Okay.
hmm
All right, so what we're going to do today is, our goal is to bring in people that we want to share, kind of the science behind metabolic health. And so then you can make your own, like, as all of you here, I think Chris, is that Chris? Christy's on. So all of you have worked with me basically. And there's about 40 people, I think, that signed up. But what I want this webinar to be is educational, just to add on to what you already know. And at the end, I'm going to share my screen. We're going to tell you some stories. We're going to introduce you to the whole team and get you really comfortable. So, and knowing what we're talking about. So we have about 45 minutes of education, the webinar. And then at the end, we'll open it up to Q&A. So this is a good time for you to, share and express. And even if you are a current client, then share with us if you feel comfortable your experience on, working with us. But at the end of the day, I want you to feel supported. So I'm going to share my screen here. And we call this session the Metabolic Health Reset. And basically we're focusing on women over 40. And we know that, needs to know about blood sugar, energy, and hormones. So before we get started, what I would love to get you guys to do is put in the chat, where are you from? Like, where are you located in this country? Hi, Grace.
I'm going to interject. We definitely don't want to focus on women just over 40 because that's an emphasis that we'll talk about.
Yes, that's true. The Philippines, Portland, that will be awesome. So we're going to admit more people coming in here in the next little bit. Washington, Northern Cal. Nice to see you here, Chris. I miss you. So Fresno, Janice, all of you are so welcome. And I'm really, really happy that you're spending this Sunday with us. Like I said, it's going to be under an hour, but we're going to open it up to Q&A at the end. So, if you have felt, there's a lot of new people here. I miss you too. That signed up here, but I know a lot of you already know us, but maybe in the past you have felt exhausted, even after a full night's sleep, your hormones feel completely out of control. Your doctor ran labs. This is what Dr. David and I hear all the time, is that basically your PCP will run labs. They're very minimal markers and they send you home basically saying that you're fine, but we know that something is not fine. So what we like to do is to hear people out. But if this sounds like you, then go ahead and put in the chat. Or if it did feel like you at some point, then, even if you say one to any of these, you are in the right place. And, our body is a miracle and it's not your fault that you feel this way. There's a biochemical reason.
Melissa, would you agree that most women at some point will go to their PCP and experience this? Most women.
100%.
Maybe
Yes.
30-year-old 50-year-old, 60-year-old, whatever, but most women will.
Yes, 100%. So if I can slide this. So I want you to be introduced to the people that are here with you. I say tonight, but it's actually today. That was an error on my part. But I'm Melissa McLean. I work with in functional medicine and get into the root cause of people's health condition. We have Dr. David, Joshua David. He's a naturopathic doctor, and he specializes in hormones, peptides, libido, regenerative medicine. LV, who is our operations manager, and she is the as everyone wave and introduce yourself, the engine behind everything running smoothly behind the scenes, and I'm grateful that she joined us here today. And Sarah Watt, who is our office manager, and she plays a key role in guiding clients into the right steps. Incredibly helpful and smart. Then we have our newest person, Grace Clute, who's our patient coordinator. And she is going to help support people along their journey. So you're enrolled in one of our programs, and we're getting her trained, and but we'll introduce you to her as we go along. But she's amazing. So thank you, all of you, for being here tonight or today, depending on where you are. LV, it's nighttime for you. So
Yeah, thank you. I think Grace can say hi,
yeah.
She might probably, she might probably meet the attendees soon. So
Yes, go ahead. Do you want to say something, Grace?
Oh, hi. It's nice to see you all. I'm excited to be here.
I'm excited that you're here too. So at the end of this webinar, thank you, LV, for saying that. So at the end of this masterclass, this educational webinar, whatever you want to call it, I've created a bunch of different practical tools like resources and ebooks. And LV is going to put in the chat that you can actually sign up for that and get an email with all these practical tips on lab marker checklists, for example, blood sugar basic guidelines to regulate your blood sugar, metabolic morning routine, and the symptom tracker, and how those all correlate together. If you're open to it, and you're new to our program, you get a 15-minute discovery call. And then if we end up doing a health evaluation, Sarah's going to explain to you, once you set up the discovery call, you get $100 off your full health evaluation with labs. So that's an amazing deal. So here is what we want to start with, that really we're not talking a lot about this, and the stats are incredibly shocking. And I'm going to just read through these really quickly, but you can see on the screen that 92% of all Americans are metabolically unhealthy. And Dr. David mentioned that I put 88%. That was the last stats that I had come up with. But just in the last few years, this metabolic dysfunction is growing. And we know that metabolic dysfunction is actually the root cause of our chronic diseases that we see today. Cancer, dementia, stroke, heart disease, and diabetes. These are all connected. And the metabolic dysfunction is the thread that runs through all of them. So it's extremely important to understand what this metabolic dysfunction that 92% of all Americans experience. And I'm not just saying adults at this point, or women, or targeting any certain demographic, but really there's kids with at 8 years old having a metabolic condition. It's called non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. We look at 3 in 5 people, and I run labs on people, and I do insulin, I do the full glucose panel, that are pre-diabetic and they don't even know it. 1 in 3 women will develop an autoimmune condition, and actually this stat from Dr. Tatis Karazian says that basically 1 out of 2 people, particularly women, and there is a reason for this. And then 90% of all our top chronic diseases have this metabolic root, which I just mentioned. And this is not bad luck. This is biology, and biology can be changed. You can change your condition and reverse it. So there's a lot of hope there. Josh, if you want to interject, or Sarah, or anybody, just go ahead.
Well, I think mentioning the autoimmune factor, most women actually will have some autoimmune component. And even if it's not up front, it's not, out there diagnosable, by your primary care doctor, it is affecting you in one way or another. And this is what leads to a lot of the Hashimoto's conditions, thyroid issues, which the majority of people will actually develop who
Yeah.
in this metabolic kind of downturn.
Yeah. It's a cascade effect that
And
we're
it
seeing.
does stem from childhood. I mean, that's why so many people, and it is culturally a problem for various reasons, but we don't have to go into all of them.
Yeah. That's it for another webinar here. So what changed in the last 30 years? And I'm not going to go over each one of them, but you can see clearly that these conditions have exploded, right? Celiac disease, which is also an autoimmune condition, chronic fatigue, sleep apnea, lupus, which is another autoimmune condition, diabetes. And diabetes has, I mean, they say that, like 2050, most people are going to be pre-diabetic or diabetic at that point. And that leads to diabetes 2, diabetes 3. Diabetes 3 now they're saying is dementia. So ADHD for kids, and even depression. And depression, most doctors give a antidepressant for, but really we're going to go into this a little bit later in this course, is that it's rooted in your serotonin transmitters in your gut. So we'll explain that in a second. But all of these conditions and many more have a very distinct link. Like I said, they all relate to the metabolic function. So many of you, and you can put this in the chat too, how many diets have you tried and actually failed? Like we all hear about the New Year's resolution, I'm going to exercise, I'm going to eat less, all these things. And it's not that we failed diets. Diets have failed us. So the myth that we've heard of eating less, exercise more, calories in, calories out, and just we have to try harder. So it puts the onus on us that we are doing something wrong. And that is completely not true. So our metabolic health is not about counting calories at all. There's some effect to it. But overall, it's a hormonal issue. And our bodies are a miracle. We respond to different systems, to different foods, and we need to track that. And many of you who have worked with me know that I have these, data tools that we look at. So you know how to correlate that. So when your hormones are dysregulated, your body stores more fat as a survival strategy, not because you're just gaining weight and it's your fault. It's actually a physiological thing that's happening. Blood sugar instability drives cravings that willpower cannot override. So that's important to hear. So when we have these extreme cravings, like sugar cravings or salt cravings, it's our body signaling to us, right? And even though we try with so much willpower and determination, you're not going to overcome that. And insulin is going to always override, so it's making sure that we, keep that blood sugar completely stable. And poor sleep raises hunger hormones and drops the fat burning ones every single night. So it's really important to get that circadian rhythm going, get a good night's sleep. But it is correlated. Like I said, all these conditions are correlated.
I think it's important too to just emphasize that none of these diets have worked.
Right.
Not a single one, but and it's because you're not looking at the metabolic function, the hormone picture. If you're missing that side of it, even with the GLP-1s, there's no lasting effects unless you address the hormones that you look at, specifically Melissa, and the hormones that I look at as well.
Yeah, it's a hormonal issue. So like I said, diets, failed you. So if you feel like you're doing everything right and still the weight won't move, what I want to emphasize on this slide, and Dr. David and I talked about this, is that our goal is not particularly just weight loss. Yes, and many of you have heard this come from me before, is that it's kind of the cherry on the cake. So it's a byproduct of fixing the root cause. So when we gain weight, and I've had many different clients that have gained, 20, 30, 40 pounds over a year, and they are freaking out. They don't know what to do. And yes, people do lose weight, but it's because we are fixing the root cause. And this goes back to the metabolic condition. So and this is something that I want to just share with you because it's a very personal story, but when patients say, I'm tired, This is a huge red flag. Fatigue means your bioenergetic pathways are not working. So what I want to explain here is that our body is innately programmed, if you will, to burn glucose efficiently and create ketones efficiently and be able to toggle between those two fuel sources. Many people, like I said, going back up, 1 out of 3 people are pre-diabetic and don't know it, or whatever that stat was, but because we are inefficient sugar burners. So our goal is to be able to toggle between these two fuel sources. And being in ketosis and the keto diet is a trendy thing, but it's if you understand that it's actually the way that our body's designed, to use 2 of these fuel sources. So the glucose is a fast fuel. It's when we're, back in the hunter-gatherer era when we're being chased by tigers, from sleep, we can get up and use that energy, but it's very short-lived and it's stored in our muscles and tissue. And when we're inefficient, our blood sugar spikes and crashes and leaves us exhausted. And the ketones are clean, longer-lasting fuel. They're anti-inflammatory for the brain, and they help us with our brain function. So it's really important for us to toggle between these two. So I'm just going to share a really personal story, really quick. Many of you know, but I grew up with 2 grandmothers, like most of us, who showed me 2 completely different versions of health. My father's mother, Grandmother Sylvia, was Polish. She was a ball of fire, like just determined as all heck. She refused conventional medicine her entire life. So I grew up, saying, she would say that, having surgeries were not necessary, basically. And she was the extremist in that way. She walked everywhere. She never had a driver's license. She was 5'3", like I said, a ball of fire, and she outlived everyone's expectations. She was over 100 when she died. Then there was my grandmother Rose, who was also 5'3", and the only thing in common was that her height. I think Grandma Rose thought candy was a food group because when I'd go visit her, she had bowls of candy, which I loved as a kid because I wasn't allowed to have it at home. She would make cookies and paint my nails red. It was wonderful. But when I was a teenager, I noticed that she was taking about 12 different medications and had every illness you can imagine. And the whole family basically said, well, that's what older means. Melissa, this is what we signed up for. But I had these 2 visions, and, I went into healthcare that echoes from both grandmothers, that really live inside of me. I always felt like low fat intuitively as a kid was not the right way to go. And that was, programmed, to us all, low fat meant, we didn't get fat, but the opposite is true. So why did these 2 women, same height, same generation, end up having such different experiences? My grandmother Rose ended up being in a home, and my grandmother Sylvia, basically died of old age, and she was at home when she died. She never was on any medications. But then, so this is how I got into healthcare very, very early on. And since then, I've been building upon that and getting more education and experience through case studies. But then I experienced a very, very personal crisis when my son got sick and no one could figure it out. I ran all of his labs. Thankfully, he was compliant, and I looked closely at the data. I run about 85 to 90 different markers. And what happened was, my son is athletic, healthy. He was an active 22-year-old, loved biking, but he actually had thyroid cancer. And this moment changed everything about how I practice. To say that I'm detailed about clients' health is an understatement. Like I said, I run about 85 to 90 different markers on every single client because I refuse to miss the smallest thinking of, inkling of a clue that potentially our PCPs miss. Thankfully, he's doing well, and it changed the whole trajectory. I kind of condensed the story, but he's doing great today, and because we caught it and treated it on time.
Well, and when you say that, just hearing your stories, it's the vector, it's the trajectory of one's life, and that's what, I think that we fail as a society to really spell out. Like, there's not a drug, there's not a multitude of drugs, and that's what you see people come in and, as an attempt to fix whatever maladies going on. But, creating one directory, direction or trajection is huge.
Yeah.
I think that's what I get out of those stories, right?
Yeah. No, exactly. And Josh, that we see kids, we run their blood labs and we can actually see a metabolic dysfunction earlier on. I'm really grateful that he was compliant and we ran labs, and I'm so grateful for my education to understand what I saw. And of course, genetics can play a role, and we can turn off. There's something that's called epigenetics. So we have the power to change the trajectory and live a good quality of life, which is my ultimate goal for the clients that I help. So they just have a really good quality of life. So in the chat, what I'd like to hear is that, how do you feel? Do you feel tired? You can't lose weight no matter what you try. You have brain fog and you can't focus. Words disappear, right? And these are all indications of metabolic issues. So if you can't remember things, we have to get to the root of that and really focus on improving your metabolic health. Do you crash and are you tired at the end of the day or after you eat? Everything you've tried stops working and you've no sex drive. Having it's healthy to have a healthy sex drive. If you don't have it, then again, we need to get to the root cause.
So number one reasons why people coming in, no energy and cognitive issues, memory and all that.
Yeah.
Then you go into the libido and sex drive and the rest of the story.
Right. So this is why Josh and I came together. I was looking for a doctor that can actually prescribe bioidentical hormones for my patients that I felt were ready for it. And I had interviewed, I think, over 5 different people. And then a mutual friend of Josh's and I, because I was putting the word out there, and I would interview a bunch of people. And I came to him and I tested him. I would ask the hard questions, because when I recommend something for my clients, I want to make sure that I believe in it, that I'm not, so they trust me enough so I can pass that on to them, like another resource. So when I found Josh, I completely trusted him with my clients, and that is something I don't say lightly.
There's a battery of questions.
Yeah.
It was a test, and I think I passed, I guess.
Yeah, you passed.
That's the pass.
You definitely did. But we know that the Metabolic Foundation, the hormonal, work hand in hand, and we see this every single time with clients. The results are not just different, and we talked about this. It's like quote unquote magic happens. The transformation happens when we get to the root cause. But clearly, our clients have to do the work. We're here to guide them and support them. You can see all the people that we're here to really support our patients and our clients.
Again, it's outcomes and trajectories, and it's just incredible. I feel very humbled and grateful to be able to be part of really shifting people's lives in a positive way.
Yeah.
Both of us.
Yes.
How happy I am to work with you, Melissa, just because, first of all, I love being a colleague and very close to you. But the results we get with our clients or patients is incredible.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you. So what I'd like to do is for Josh to tell us his story. So you've told Sarah and I about your story and how you became a doctor. And I think it's important for people to know. So if you want to take it away and share that.
Well, I have been asked this many times. Patients want to know, and especially, how did I get into more holistic medicine? My background is naturopath. Naturopathy has been around for actually over 100 years, but it's not anything I knew anything about. In fact, my whole life I said I never really wanted to be a doctor. I didn't. My father was a physician. He was an ophthalmologist. He was an incredible physician. He treated his patients amazingly. He called them after surgery, which was unheard of from doctors, calling their patient after surgery. I did, notice those things growing up, but as, in a young person's mind, I'm like, that's not for me. I was more physical. I wanted to go build things. I wanted to be outside. I wanted to use my hands. And that's what I did. I did go get education initially, college. I had two majors, biology and psychology, and I came out as a construction worker. So it wasn't until actually I destroyed my back doing construction to the point I actually stuck it out to the point where I couldn't walk, I couldn't work. Just life stopped at that point because I couldn't do what I was doing. And really I had time at that point to think. And that was the key because I could barely get out of the house. And so in that time I really reflected on where do I belong in this world? And, when you're in the midst of working and doing day-to-day things, you don't have that time. But so what was, and this is a story again, I bring it up because people do ask, but, at that point, I'm like, well, I'm just going to go be a surgeon. And that's where my mind went. I was going to be an orthopedic surgeon. That was it. I started studying. I got into classes. I was going to kill it on the MCATs, get into medical school and be an orthopedic surgeon. Didn't go that way. I met someone while I was in the midst of studying, a woman who was going into naturopathic school. And she said something to me that really stuck. And it was, she saw that I, was good at math. I was good at science. I did have that kind of gift. And she said, this more holistic medicine needs more people like you. You should think about it. You should come check it out. And that's where I kind of went that route. I learned about it. Ended up not going to traditional medical school, did not become an orthopedic surgeon. I do injection therapies, regenerative injections that are orthopedic in nature, but I'm not doing surgery. But in that process, I did get into a more holistic mindset, which just does not occur in the more allopathic setting in the traditional medical school. So, on reflection, it all kind of worked out. But at this point, treating people with Melissa, looking at the whole body, looking at holistic care, it's pretty incredible. It's a long road, and I think Melissa probably had a long road to learn what she knows at this point. But again, like I said before, the outcomes and the trajectory of health, it's parallel to nothing. We need surgeons. It's great. We have them. But we don't have enough doctors who reflect on a holistic health and even on a societal basis. So anyways, that's my story.
Thank you for sharing. Also, just to mention that you've been doing this now for 25 years. So after that whole thing.
Just past 25 years, so more than a quarter century now. That's crazy.
Yeah. So that's crazy. Yeah, it does fly. But, so starting from that, time when you were deciding and, now you've been in it for over 25 years.
Right.
And you have a physical practice in Portland, Oregon. So for that 25 years.
Right.
Yeah. So thank you for sharing that. I just wanted to, people who do work with Josh and me, you may not know his full story, but also I want to share something about Sarah because it's really wonderful, her story. And I've gotten approval from her that I can share this story. But before we get into the teaching of metabolic health and kind of how we can improve our health, I want to share about Sarah. So she's Josh's office manager, and she helps both of us, but she works in Josh's office with him. And she's 34 years old. I feel like I'm saying that. And I'm telling you the story today because I want you to see that there are so much possibilities. And the thing is that our health is not linear, right? So, and you don't have to be, 50, 60, 70 to start doing this. So Sarah watched and I moved up to Portland and I have an office in his practice now. And I have a lot of virtual clients as well. But so Josh and I are working on clients. And so Sarah's just watching. And she, for a long time, she just stood inside of the practice and watched and happened how we help people. And she saw the lab, she saw the results, she helps order labs. And so she saw these women coming in, and men, just feeling bad and just not functionally, at the optimal level. But she was still a bit hesitant. And because the things that we know are possible, I want to make sure that you know that it's possible for you. So Sarah gained over 25 pounds. She was 55 pounds overweight, and she could not lose that no matter what she tried. She had anxiety through the roof and had completely accepted that's just part of who she was. And if I'm saying anything,
she pulled that weight gain off pretty well. It wasn't like super obvious, but it was there. And go on.
Yeah. Yeah, she didn't look overweight.
She's a taller gal and athletic, so she covered up pretty good.
Yeah, but so her anxiety was another issue. She just felt that it was part of your identity, right, Sarah? Like you had tried things, nothing really worked, and you told a story to us that the day after, I guess you had an appointment with your PCP doctor, your primary care practitioner, and you started work the next day with Dr. David and not knowing really what he did. And then you found out, like you just learned more and more. And basically at the end of the day, she's lost 55 pounds. We healed her gut, we healed her metabolic health, and she's kept the weight off. 55 pounds gone. And it's now we notice, right, Josh? Like we notice, that you've lost that weight.
Well,
and
everyone knows because it's not the weight so much. It's just how much
healthier. Yeah. Yeah. No, like we said, the weight comes off. It's like the cherry on the cake kind of thing. But once we heal the gut and the anxiety, and I want to just share this because this is really important because her anxiety was through the roof. And once we healed her gut, that went away. Like we have anxiety just because of the world we live in and things like that are natural, but the constant anxiety that one may feel and not have it pinpointed what that anxiety is causing is a biological condition.
Right. Well, and the other side of the coin too is that, perimenopause does begin for most women in the 30s. And, obviously there's metabolic issues and hormone issues way younger.
Yeah.
Way younger. But
Yeah.
It's important to understand that especially for women, there's going to be shifts, and it's compounded by stress and juggling all these things. And by the time they hit, between 30 and 35, there are some major shifts, and that's when really the weight gain and even cognitive issues can begin, and many other problems. But you don't need to wait till you're 45, 50, 60, menopausal to get into being evaluated and dealing with your metabolic kind of downturn and your hormonal downturn or a shift. It doesn't have to be even a solid downturn, but addressing the shift.
Yeah. And it's not too late if people are in their 50s, 60s, and 70s.
Oh, no, I start people in their 70s, 80s even sometimes. So
yeah. We have joint patients that are in their 80s, actually. And we have younger people as well. So it's just the gamut. We live in a society right now that is very difficult to optimize our health long term. So we don't necessarily know what we don't know. So let me just go through this. Now let's get into the science of this. So there are 3 hidden stressors keeping you stuck. And I noticed that a few of you put in the chat that you're completely overloaded, overstressed, and it's incredibly important to identify and really work on these stressors. And most women are fighting at least one of them, and you can put in the chat if you feel like you have all 3. But, emotional stress, and there's stress is going to be there in our life, right? So it's how we manage that. But basically, when we have emotional stress, our cortisol blocks the fat burning mode, and that's, like we said, it just triggers insulin, which is a hormone. So there's cortisol and glucose that can trigger the same pathway in insulin. And it's very difficult to downstream. It's chronic, inflammation. It's dysregulated. And this is biology, right? So emotional stress is incredibly important to manage. Environmental stress, the things that we don't see, the air we breathe, the water we drink, the cosmetics, the cleaning products, all of that are very toxic for us. So we need to remove those, and those are endocrine disruptors, and they mimic hormones and confuse the body. So mold, heavy metals, and chemicals overload our detox pathways. Our body is constantly detoxing, and when we reach the bucket of overflow of detox, that's when we start to see all these things happen. And your liver can't do all these jobs at the same time. So we need to create a healthy pathway, like open our detox pathways.
When you say, Melissa, just all this begins early. I mean, even in childhood, and it's just accumulation. That's why
Yeah.
the endocrine function just downregulates, dysregulates, metabolism falls apart. And I mean, when you start really getting major symptoms, it's been going on
For a long time. Exactly. Usually these things, our body, like I said earlier, is a miracle. And when we have decades and decades of these kind of offenses that are kind of coming at us, it takes our body decades to feel the symptoms. But how you feel is important. And a lot of this is reversible. So since our body is a miracle, by removing some of these things, the obstacles out of the way, we can really find, a healthier lifestyle. Nutritional stressors as well, like inflammatory oils, nutrient deficiencies, ultra processed foods. Even though the foods say that they're healthy, they may be signaling an inflammatory response. So I'm very keen on learning about what's in the ingredients for my clients. And you can't eat healthy and still be malnourished. I see people that are malnourished and that are eating more food. So we need to make sure that the foods that you're eating are nutrient dense and that you can actually absorb your nutrients.
Melissa approved.
Melissa approved products, yeah. So your gut is your second brain, and it's incredibly important. I can go on about this a bit more, but 85% of your immune system is housed in your gut. 90% of your serotonin, your happy hormone, so this is when you feel down or depressed. Like I said, it's not your fault most of the time. It is housed in your gut, and that means your microbiome is dysregulated. So this happy neurotransmitter hormone, our neurotransmitter that produces serotonin, is housed in your gut. When you have a dysbiotic gut, it's hard to feel happy. 500 million neurons are connected to our gut in our brain. And Josh,
more neurons in the gut.
In our gut.
There's 28 feet of gut, and it accumulates more neurons than actually exist in your brain. I just heard this fact recently. It's pretty phenomenal.
Yeah. So brain fog, anxiety often start in the gut, to Sarah's story, right? That is housed in the gut. So once we fixed her gut and she was able to get the nutrients that she needed, the anxiety went away. So leaky gut allows, so this is when the tight junctures of our gut lining separate and the bad bacteria goes through to our bloodstream. And this triggers inflammation everywhere. And it can trigger things like even in, neuro problems like dementia, Parkinson's, those kinds of things, or even skin issues. So when we address the underlying gut drivers, everything gets better. Our mood, energy, hormones, weight, sleep, skin, and pain.
I heard something about the direct link to depression, and it's becoming huge at this point because a lot of the antidepressants aren't working because you're not getting near to the root cause, and healing the gut actually does. I mean, we talked about Sarah and her anxiety, but depression is a big deal right now, and I see people turn around all the time just from what you're talking about.
Yeah, 100%. And you don't have to take an antidepressant. Let's fix your gut, you know.
Most people don't.
Yeah. I mean, it's not like I'm not against the certain medications if it gets you over the bridge, but it's only temporary, right? Like I've had clients that have gotten off, you know, many, many different medications. And I'm not going to get you off your medication. Your prescribing doctor will. So there's 3 blood sugar patterns that are running your life. So there's the roller coaster one. So basically your blood sugar spikes really high and then comes crashing down pretty hard and you feel completely exhausted. And you feel wiped out where you feel like you have to take a nap. And this is cravings after meals, afternoon energy crashes where you need coffee to get you through, or you need a little bit of a snack. You know, you're irritable, so you can't go more than, you know, you get hangry and you can't go more than like say 4 hours without eating. So that's a symptom, right? Those are not just who you are. They're actually a biological symptom. The slow burn is when blood sugar stays chronically elevated and insulin is elevated and it's leading you to insulin resistance down that ladder or up that ladder, I should say, for diabetes and diabetes 2 and 3. So you can't lose weight despite everything you've tried. And this is something that's really important to get that insulin down, to get that glucose down. So the crash and the burn is that your blood sugar drops. So when this is, you know, reactive hypoglycemic is a pattern when your blood sugar drops significantly after you eat. And, you know, particularly when you are sleeping and your body releases adrenaline and compensates. So then you're up in the middle of the night, right? Like at 3 o'clock in the morning and you can't get back to sleep. Your heart pounding, you're anxious and you're, you know, just basically exhausted. So waking up at 3 or 2 in the morning and not getting back to sleep is a biological root cause. You know, it's a condition that we can take care of. So put in the chat what blood sugar pattern sounds most like you. Roller coaster, slow burn, crash and burn, and honestly all 3. And it's true. I mean, this is what I work with people on just to really stabilize that blood sugar.
You know, one thing I might mention, Melissa, at this point, and we do somewhat address it down the road, but you know, women who get offered birth control pills for basically any kind of menstrual irregularity, that's just what's offered. Their androgens are wiped out typically, so testosterone, DHEA. When I supplement either for a man or a woman testosterone, so there's a type 2 diabetic and there's a type 1 diabetic. Type 1 is where the pancreas is not making insulin and they require insulin shots. I have to have these patients, when they get testosterone back on board, go back to their endocrinologist to adjust. I mean, you don't have to do this with type 2 diabetic or typically anyone else, but type 1 diabetic who's insulin dependent, they have to adjust their insulin because it'll automatically sensitize their insulin receptors. So it's just a good example of how important, you know, healthy hormonal balance is.
Yeah, and diabetes 1 is an autoimmune condition, and you need it. Just like Josh says, that your body's not producing enough insulin.
It wipes out the beta cells, and they actually stop producing insulin.
Yeah, so you need insulin, and insulin is a good hormone, but when not used efficiently, it causes all kinds of issues. So. All right, so these are the labs markers, and many of you have worked with me where I go over this, but the standard range, which is the disease threshold, right? So this is basically done, they're very wide, they're done by your conventional doctor, and the markers that they're looking at are very wide. So that leaves a lot of room for disease, right? Where we look at a functional range, they're narrower ranges. But fasting glucose, sometimes your doctor says that, 125 in a fasted state is okay. And that is, with the other markers, like there's hormone markers that, we can talk about, but fasting insulin, fasting glucose, the average glucose that you can see in that 3-month period shouldn't be under 100. And really, I'd like to see people, in the 80s when we're in a fat. That's what my goal is for my clients, is to get you into your blood sugar being in the 80s. Fasting insulin is very, very wide. And this is what we're talking about. If it drops below 2 or 2.6 in the functional range, it could indicate that potentially you are going down the path of diabetes 1. But when your insulin is higher than 5 and you want to lose weight, there's no way that you can if that stays elevated. So this is a marker that I run in a fasted state. And the free T3 thyroid, which is Josh's expertise, can talk about that.
Yeah, real quick, I know we're getting down on time, but before I get into thyroid, I just want to mention, I mean, these are just examples, but the glucose and insulin are so important because when you have fasting glucose at 125, your blood vessels are falling apart. I mean, it destroys them. High glycosylation that has to do with hemoglobin A1C, it destroys your blood vessels, and that's in your brain, that's your heart, the rest of your body. So it's really important. As far as thyroid goes, it is just over and over and over. People are screened with TSH, thyroid stimulating hormone. You go to their doctor, the doctor says you're totally normal, it's in range, but their T3 levels are down to like almost 2. And if that's the case, you're going to have distinct gross symptoms of low thyroid or hypothyroidism.
Like hair health, your internal temperature, hot, cold.
Tanked out energy-wise, hot and cold dysregulation, cognitive issues, not being able to remember anything. I mean, I can't. I mean, every time I hear these things, it's over and over. And if I just give someone thyroid, most of these things actually start to clear up.
And then when we look at DHEA and cortisol, those are your adrenals. And sometimes when people can't recover from, a normal activity that they like skiing, and then they just can't recover, they feel exhausted. These are the things that we have to look at, DHEA and cortisol, and really support that.
What to know about DHEA too is it just goes down and down as we get older. So that's why, especially for, people 35 and older, it's important to supplement DHEA because it's natural to just get that decline. But every study in the past 50 plus years has shown exactly the same thing, that the more DHEA you have in your system, the less disease and early death that you're going to experience. And so that links back to that cortisol regulation, but and much more, immune regulation and everything. But it's a big one.
And this is the hormone cascade. You can just read this because I know we're already at 12:47. But step 1, blood sugar regulation. If that becomes unstable, then cortisol and insulin rise to compensate. The third step is cortisol steals progesterone, so you're low in progesterone and you may not be able to sleep at night and you gain weight. And then DHEA and testosterone crash, so your libido is gone, and you feel flat and you assume it's aging. And this is probably what your, doctor has told you, that it's just part of growing older, but it's not. You deserve the quality of life. And then 5th is that your thyroid signaling stops. So that's the hormone cascade. Josh touched on birth control. It's not a solution for perimenopausal symptoms. It can actually suppress your libido, worsen your depression, and increase cancer and blood clot and stroke risk. So you deserve to know what your hormones are actually doing and why. But this is a common thing. And Josh, you can speak.
It's just a pharmaceutical solution, and that's kind of what, unfortunately OBGYNs are trained in. That's why it's offered. They don't get trained into the other side unless a lot of them actually do what I do, that they go outside of their original training.
And then Maggie's a woman that, was on, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but basically she was exhausted, not feeling well. And she told me that she felt invisible in the medical system. She didn't feel like she was being heard. She was on 5 different medications, a statin, one for sleep. She was on an antidepressant. She had 2 different blood sugar meds. And then she had one medication that actually helped to manage all the side effects, which is kind of crazy. But she felt a bit skeptical, and she didn't feel like a person anymore or a woman that she wanted to be, and she felt like she was she basically was a diagnosis rather than a person. And every single person that she went to, and a lot of our joint clients, they go to many different people to find the answers. And every single practitioner said that everything is normal, based on those labs. And, they don't really listen to how you're feeling, and how, like I said, how you feel is really important. So we did a full functional panel. We, like many of you that are on this call today, it's eye-opening, right? That we can actually see what's going on from a functional lens and then create a very specific treatment plan. That's what I did. And in 6 months, she is a new person. She feels alive again. Her libido's back. She's worked with Dr. David, to get her hormones, optimized and all that. So, if you feel that there's no hope, and our health is not linear. So we may need more than 6 months. We may need more checkups, more, fine tuning and tweaking to get you where you can be that way. It's not a time limit. And we have different clients that go through different
I just want
things.
to emphasize just one, I think, important point is that, the doctors that, these people are going to, it's not that they just don't care or they're not really listening. It's that they're trained to look at normal, quote unquote, normal ranges. And if things are in normal range, their original training literally tells them, well, everything, it checks out. So it's not that they don't care.
Yes.
Make that point.
Yeah, no, that's true.
It's part of how they're trained.
Yeah, it's a lot how they're trained, right? So you don't know what you don't know. Maggie didn't know that her blood sugar was unstable. She didn't know her cortisol was stealing her progesterone. She did not know her DHE had crashed, and she did not know any of it until we spent some time with her. So this is what we're going to recommend. We're going to get into a Q&A here, but basically this is kind of our process. We do a discovery call, full functional health evaluation with a lab panel, and then if you choose, then we can give you the extra support and to get you into a program. So what I like is for my clients to have a really good quality of life. Feeling like yourself again, you feel good in your body, you're maintaining your lean muscle mass. It's not just about losing weight, but it's actually protecting our organ for longevity, which is our muscles, and building those up while we start to get into that other fuel source that I talked about. And that's when you feel great, and then you can optimize your hormones through Josh but we need to kind of take care of also at the same time your metabolic health, and those two together are really magical. So like I said, LB is going to put in the chat here that, because you stayed to the end and I so appreciate it, that you're going to get a bunch of these resources. So she's going to put this in the chat. Click the link in the chat, and there's like 4 different ebooks, or all in an ebook of what we'll be discussing. Yeah, and then there's a discovery call if you want to have another, consult that's free. So let's open it up to questions.
Thanks for everyone listening to us.
Yeah, thank you for joining. It's really wonderful to see all of you. So go ahead and put in the chat any questions that you may have. And Sarah, if you don't mind just looking at the questions and bringing them up. And if no one has any questions, that's totally fine too.
Let's take a picture
Okay.
while they're thinking about their questions. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'll take a picture. You mean getting on camera? Hi, Jules.
Yes.
Okay. I don't know. Do you want me to do it or do you do it?
I think
Hi, Steph.
you can do it.
Okay, I'll do it. Okay, here we go. Okay. Thank you, everyone. So go ahead and get those resources. If you have any questions, I'd love to talk to you more about what we can do to help get you healthy and feel really good. But thank you, all of you. We're a little bit early before 1 o'clock. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday.
Thank you, Melissa.
Yeah, thank you, Josh, and everyone. Thank you for all showing up.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I just want to make sure that you're able to see the link that I dropped.
I don't see the link.
Go in the chat, Jules.
It's in the chat. Yes.
And then there's the discovery call link, and then get your bonus kit here, which is the metabolic hormonal reset ebook. Yeah, thank you, Christy. I didn't see you here. Sending you a big hug, though. Thanks for joining. Tina, nice to see you. Let me see who else is here. Phyllis. Kathy. Hi, Kathy. Stephanie. You guys are wonderful. And we hope to do more of these. If there's a subject that you want to hear, we would love to hear your feedback as well. Thanks, everyone.
Have a great Sunday.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. That was awesome. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.